You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome to the Friday episode of Cards to the Moon. This is episode 84. My name is Clark from 5 Card Guys, and co-hosting with me, as always, is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards and John, who is Trade You at Recess. So, off the top, I just want to share some of my thoughts after attending a local card show here in the Greater Toronto area this past weekend. And I want to see if you guys think any of my observations might change or will probably stay the same for the big sports card expo we have here in Toronto in a couple of months. All right. So first, and this is, I'm just speaking generally, dealers seem to be still pricing their cards way too high, like early pandemic prices, although we're in a bear market, as we've been talking about episode after episode in recent weeks. Mm-hmm. But observation number 2, on the other hand, dealers are, buying cards at heavily discounted prices because it's the bear market. And third, the high-end dealers are few and far between. It's just an observation I've noticed. I'm sure we'll see more at the expo, which will have a lot more vendors in general, of course. But I wonder if it's also because collectors aren't exactly looking to spend big-time cash during this bear market. So 3 observations I made at the card show that I went to, and it's a smaller one. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Will it change at all, you think, in the bigger sports card expo coming up in November, or do you think dealers are still in that mindset trying to sell high and buy really low?
I think the bigger card show, you'll probably have a better showing, in my opinion. I think the local card shows are kind of limited with a bunch of dealers as well. And to me, it's a clear sign that people are definitely not selling kind of like the stuff that they're in deep, pockets with. If right. They don't want to sell at a loss yet. They're maybe trying to trade anything, maybe get a card back in return that has legs. Plus some cash to recoup some of that loss. And also their behavior is on point. Like they're still buying the good deals, right? Because they want to, be able to make their money off that too. So at the end of the day, it looks like it's a money move, and most people are in too deep on some cards and they're not willing to let it go, and maybe hoping that somebody might be interested in a particular card, right? So I think it's the state of the market, like we talked about. The mentality has not changed in terms of kind of like, we still want X price because I bought it for that price,
right,
so I don't want to take a loss on it. So I'll kind of go somewhere close to that, right? If there's a good deal. But then they realize they're there all day and nobody's really biting.
Exactly.
So they might have to change their strategy, come November. But like I said, I believe that the market's going to continually do this, because especially for baseball cards, because we're going to a down period of off season now. The hype's down. So just naturally, baseball I think is going to be down, but I could see, people bringing out some big guns in the November show. It's been usually the better one, actually. I prefer this show in Toronto, the Sport Card Expo, over the spring one, or the spring summer one. I always thought that it was a better show, at least in times past. So I believe they're going back to the old venue too. Which
the bigger
which
one?
is a little different. No, it was the original one, like last November as well. They moved to the bigger venue in the spring, and I think they're going back to kind of like the smaller venue that seemed like it was more packed, I guess, right? So yeah, it's interesting that you notice all those behaviors, because it seems to me that no one wants to take an L. Just
not yet,
not yet, and just buy the good deals to try to make up for it or something like that, right? So
right,
yeah. Mm-hmm. So the classic paying strong, and it's like 60% of comps.
Hey, I do the same thing, right. So
you can't blame them, because there's just so many people that are desperate that it works, right? Like people are gonna dump. Yeah, the smaller card shows, I mean, that's just a function of the smaller ones that I've gone to with you, with the two of you guys. Generally, there's a lot of hobbyists that are setting up tables rather than real dealers. So you will find, a lot of smaller cards. If you're into the sort of $1,000, $5,000, €10,000, into that whale card space, probably not really your scene. But the Sport Card Expo, obviously that's where you're going to get the bigger deals. I think the three of us are expecting to hopefully make some big trades. We've been waiting for quite a while now. But of the YouTubers that I've been watching that have attended, the Dallas card show and a couple of these other card shows, other than that Burbank one that happened, that
right,
just blew up
a few weeks ago. Yeah.
It was sounding like the activity was a lot slower than maybe the past couple of shows, and people didn't seem to be as quote unquote successful in terms of sales. I could probably picture that for the expo, and that's not necessarily any sort of indication of where the sports card industry is headed or anything like that, but it's just real life is happening right now, right? Like
sure.
Interest rates and inflation, all of that stuff. I think people are tightening up on their money, and things like investments in sports cards and personal entertainment and expenditures like that.
Right.
It's all going to all putting on pause. So I would imagine the Sport Card Expo, even just the traffic alone and the interest, will probably slow down. I could see a lot smaller or less busy show. I could anticipate that. For the three of us, though, in terms of the way dealers act, I really hope we can make some deals, and these dealers aren't. You're gonna get probably more than half of these guys with high prices, looking to give you like 60-70% trade value on your cards. I mean, it's inevitable, but if you work, obviously, like any show, you work hard enough, you're going to find a couple of good dealers that are willing to,
sure,
be like right on comps and willing to make really good deals. So it's just going to take a lot of work.
So.
Yeah, it's up to us. It's up to everybody who walks into these big shows, whether you want to put in that effort or not. So
we might have to hook John up with a GoPro and see his hustle game.
For sure.
Because when card shows and John's, this guy's walking 16,000 steps.
Man.
Yeah. He's walking 16,000 steps and making deals like left, right, and center, getting rid of every single slab.
Seriously, man. You could do a tutorial.
You guys see just how many rejections I get.
It's part of the game.
Part of the game, man.
Nice. Yeah, no, I agree with both your points. Obviously overall I was a little disappointed, mainly because I couldn't trade up my Aaron Judge Bowman Chrome refractor auto that I have.
Good
and
thing.
I overheard, yeah, I know he just hit 61 as we're recording this. So, I overheard a couple of vendors saying they're actually didn't put all their best stuff out at that show. They're saving it for November. They're kind of taking their chances too. If the market goes down, so be it. But I think in that regards, it might be good for us. There'll be definitely better cards, higher end cards, more Grail cards. That'll be fun to see in a couple months. So we'll see how it goes. But I guess I'm gonna send my Judge card to Golden or one of the higher auction houses where
I think you need to.
Where the people with money can don't care about the recession we're in and they just want it. So I might have to go that route.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see. It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to the November show coming up. Okay, let's move on to our Friday hobby discussion. And it's actually something you, John, brought up in our chat, and that's the whole debate on whether cleaning or polishing your card with any kind of special product is considered altering a card, or is it fair game? I know that's a debate that's been going on with other collectors elsewhere, but I know there's one specific company, and I'm sure there's more. I'm not sure if you saw on your Instagram feeds, but Kurt's Card Care seems to really be promoting their stuff. They specialize in offering products that cleans up your card real nice, and they seem to be growing in popularity because I think they're almost at 10K followers, and they just started recently. So yeah, what do you guys think?
Man, that's a touchy subject. You guys are hopping on. But I guess these are the questions that we have to kind of discuss because they are part of the hobby. And, I get it from a pure standpoint, like somebody who's in the hobby will consider that altering a card. Like you're basically, applying something. I don't mind a swipe, to be honest, like without any product. But I know a lot of people do it on Chrome cards. Obviously, there's something that I never really, I personally don't care, but I know a lot of people do care. And there's ways that you can basically get surface scratches out, and people use it and take that as an advantage. My only concern would be, like, we don't know the long-term effects of this either, right? Like all of a sudden Chrome cards start, greening or discoloring, for instance. We don't know the long-term effects for these. So I guess we'll see. We don't know the long-term effects on this, kind of like our diet with aspartame and sugar and all this junk, right? We'll see how it goes. But I think from a pure standpoint, like, it's kind of a no-no, but I could see both sides of the argument, because for me, it's like I'm big on, just making sure, nothing is absolutely noticeable. So that's like when you inspect the card, and you could get fingerprints and other, maybe smaller marks out without applying product with just a micro fiber cloth, right? So there's ways that you could clean it that way, but I don't know, like, the whole thing is just like 50-50 for me. It's a tough debate, and I could see both sides of it. I'm not for or against it, to be honest, because I worry about myself, and I'm not personally back into that stuff. Like, I'm not sending raw cards anymore, so it's like, what, I'm kind of neutral on that position. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, I respect both sides, we'll just say. It's a tough one. Yeah.
Shyam's being a politician with this issue. All right.
Oh man, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I hear you, John.
I brought it up because it's been quite a hot topic amongst social media in sports cards in the last number of weeks. Neo Cards and Comics, who Clark, you and I like to watch a lot. He talked about it, and he mentioned not just things like cleaning, surface cleaning and whatnot, or buffing, but even things like if you have sort of like a pressed corner. People use like flattener machines to kind of get it back to like a normal sharp corner.
That's crazy.
And some people are not all about that, right? Like he was mentioning how that is normal practice and very accepted in like the comic book world, where you like press the comics to make sure they're nice and flat, and then it goes into like a grater, and then it's in there nicely, right? For me, I think when you trim a card, that is 100% no, right? I am not for trimming that. I think that is manipulating the original card and all that stuff. But to be honest, cleaning, buffing, with some of the older cards with like the gum or wax, and you like heat it and you get rid of the wax, pressing the corner to make it flat. I'm all for that, man. I am like 100%. I'm on the side of like, I'm all for that, because come on, like, if you want to be purist about it, like the card coming off the printer, it's in perfect condition, and then it gets scratches because of the machine, or goes into the pack and gets dented, or the cards are jiggling around in the pack and get more and more scratched up like Chrome cards. So you can't say that the scratches are OG to the card, because they're not, because that was a part of the scratches during transit or during the machine, faulty machines or whatnot, right? And like a dented corner, who wants to see a dented corner? If you have a folded corner in half, you're not going to send that to grading and then they're going to encapsulate a folded corner. You're going to flatten that corner out. Like, I mean, so I'm on the other end. Like, if you were to try to clean it or get it back to like I think restoring it to its original pristine as close to as possible. Because I mean, when you watch like things like Pawn Stars, when you're collecting old books and things that are like really, really expensive from like the 1800s, there is value in restoring it, like getting it back to a condition that is pleasing to the eye and eye appealing, all that stuff, right? So I'm all for it, man. Like if you can get it back to a PSA 10 or a BGS 10 or an SGC 10, like a mint condition, the way the card should have been coming off the press, I'm for that. Trimming, all of that kind of stuff, no, that's a big no-no. But to get it back to its original condition, I'm completely fine with that.
Okay. Yeah, I can see how this is like a slippery slope argument, right? You'd start off with a little bit of polishing and buffing, and then what else can you do with better technology in the future? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you know, you could
Get your panini press out there, press the corner a bit, you know?
Laser eye, you like remove like a thin layer.
See, that's all altering for me, you know? Like, you're altering the card.
Yeah, if you're, I mean, if you're to slice something off, yeah, obviously, but I don't know.
What about you, Clark?
I'm for it, man. I'm for it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I know it's a slippery slope argument, but if we're just talking about like cleaning, polishing, and just making it nice and, you know, shiny, especially with the chrome cards, because I feel like it's more applicable to the newer modern chrome cards, you know, that can be worth a lot more as a PSA 10 versus a PSA 9. So I get why people do it. Right. It's a lot of people just do it for the money. But I think of it this way. If I got a graded card that was PSA 10 and it's an awesome card, I love it, and I find out later that someone used Kurt's card cleaner on it, I'm not gonna say, oh my gosh, I want my money back. I'm like, oh, that's nice. Like I got a PSA 10 card and I like the look of it. You know what I mean?
What if it starts discoloring though?
That
starts hulking?
Yeah, not even hulking, because hulking is kind of like natural to chrome cards, but like it starts like a weird color where it's just like, hey, wait a minute.
Then I guess it's gonna.
Yeah, you get caught red-handed in like 15 years.
Right. In that case, I guess there'll be a class action lawsuit in the future. Right? We'll band together, okay?
These grading companies will be in big trouble if something like that happens.
Yeah, and so in a nutshell, as of this moment, because things can always change, but as of this moment, I'm kind of with John. I don't really have a problem with it. You know, if you look in the art world, there's always restoration projects going on with like high-end, very old, $1 million pieces, and that's an accepted practice. So if I'm going to see that practice being accepted, you know, I know it's not exactly the same parallel, but it's similar enough for me to say like, okay, you know, if the art world does it, and you know, we always usually do make comps with the sports card and the art world, especially on the higher end stuff, I'm okay with it. You know, you just make the card nice, and yeah, we'll see. Like, I know, you know, I hope we don't get any negative feedback. It's like, how dare you? That is not altering.
How dare you? That's why I'm neutral on this, because
to each their own.
You know, yeah, I'm just saying their own. That's the best way to put it. But yeah, I agree with you guys. Like, if you think it's fine, I'm okay with it. I'm not gonna make a big stink about it. But like for me, it's more the like, okay, like what if those scenarios happen? Is it doing justice for the hobby? Like, stuff like that, where it's on the back of my mind. So it's like, I mean, I will wipe down my cards still because I see like fingerprints or stuff like that. But I don't think every card should be a PSA 10 out of the press, to be honest. Right? I think that's the whole point of rarity and stuff like that. And people just do it for that, to get that surface grade, right? And it's a selfish move at the end of the day, because you're essentially trying to alter the card in some way to get higher value for it. And that's what I'm saying. It's such a gray area that who's to say that's not right or wrong, right? So it's like, it's not really, it's a tough one where I can't really say it's right or wrong. It's not, I'm not the police for that, you know? So if you want to go do that, go ahead, right?
That's a good point. Yeah. No, that's definitely a good point. And, but you did say you wipe away fingerprints? Damn,
I'll wipe away fingerprints, because
that's altering, man. Altering.
I'm talking about any product, I think.
I hate
is a no-no.
I'm just kidding.
You got to get rid.
Yeah.
You know what's hilarious is our original submission to PSA. You know, Hyung, you and I mean, more you inspected all the cards. We made sure to wipe down all fingerprints. One of my cards, it's a PSA 10. It's like I think it's like a Nikhil Prism Silver or something.
Mm-hmm.
It has the greasiest fingerprint on it. Like the grader probably ate a pizza while grading my card, and it's encapsulated in a PSA 10. It bothers me so. I mean, I got rid of the card a long time ago. I think it was a gold wave. I mean, that card's long gone, but it had like a very noticeable fingerprint. Like, I was like, man, come on. Like,
You know what? That would bug me.
bothers me so much.
That
It
would
bothered
bug me
so
because
much.
it was done by the grader, obviously, not
Right.
it didn't get graded like that. I believe that they put their fingerprint on it,
Right.
you know, as they're encapsulating it.
Yeah, he probably pressed his finger down as he's putting it into the machine.
Because you know I
or
wouldn't have
whatever.
sent it.
No way. Like it was like completely noticeable, like a huge, like greasy fingerprint. I'm like, what? It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Anyways.
that's hilarious. I'll close off with this thought though. Like in the future, who knows with grading too, right? Like if AI takes over, maybe there's a way that AI can tell that, oh, there's been product put on this,
Sure.
and then you could put that as a modifier, and then that might change the whole values as well. Like if you get a PSA 10 and it doesn't have that modifier, you're like, oh, this is original PSA 10 clean card without any modifications.
And there,
right?
you know what? There was actually a point in time, I would say last year, I forgot who the submitter was. It might have been KK Sports Cards. They're a big submitter down in the US, and they had to make it a public statement because people were like polishing their cards or all, like I guess putting stuff that the
Residual.
it was like the residue. Yeah, the residue.
Yeah.
That's the name, not residual. The residue was like still there. So they were ungrading these cards because PSA was saying you guys are altering the cards, right? So I remember there was something about this about a year ago, and maybe that's because, you know, people weren't careful. They didn't fully wipe down their cards. They were just being lazy or whatever it was. But I'm fully sure that PSA is aware of it. So it's something that, and they've rejected some cards. I remember a lot of cards came back, and the submitter ended up putting out a statement regarding that. So I know it's kind of like a wish-washy kind of topic, and it's been addressed before. But I think if you go on the forums, everybody will say it's a big no-no. But then when it comes down to it, they might be like,
like let's come on, let's be real, because like the big example is like that whatchamacallit, Justin Herbert Prism Black or whatever, right? Like it was like previously like a BGS 8.5 with like a very noticeable sort of like scratch, like a sort of like a circular scratch, and then now it's like in a PSA 10 holder. I don't know what it's in, but it's a way better grade and it's gone, right? You can't tell me if you're the owner of that card that you don't want it cleaned in a PSA. Come on, like 100 out of 100. Everybody who is like bashing
I'm gonna rip it up. I'm gonna
everyone who's saying
crack
like,
that
oh,
and
that's
rip it
like,
up.
that's brutal and like that's wrong. Like no, you're all hypocrites, man. Like if you have that card, you don't want that in a BGS 7.5. You're obviously gonna want it in a PSA 10. Come on, let's be real.
Oh man, I feel like this argument will just keep going. it's as old as time too.
I do know that a lot of people will look at like grades with subgrades, for instance, BGS, for instance, and you get to see the surface grade. So people like, that's the decision factor of whether they crack it out or not. If they're seeing corners, edges, and centering at a 9.5 plus, and then the surface is like a 9. Or even like an 8.5, people are like, usually if it's an 8.5, they're like, probably it's a bigger surface damage than we can, correct. But then if it's floating at that 9, they're like, hey, it's a few scratches here and there. We'll crack it. We'll polish it. We'll send it to PSA, and then they end up getting the PSA 10. So there's that too. I know people use that as a kind of a guide, but like I said, when you have no regulations in a market, it's like what's right or wrong, who's the police at that point. So I don't think it's more of a whatever you feel is right and wrong until somebody lays down the law and says you can't do it or you can do it. I don't think it's
or if there's like no financial incentive to do it, right? Like I said, that scenario where if there's AI grading and you could tell that there's been some kind of substance put on it, and then they put that as a modified grade. That. Then who's going to do it if the values tank?
Rejected.
Right. Or if the grader says no, we're not grading these cards anymore. Exactly, right? Anyway, we'd love to hear from our listeners what they think. I know it's a hot topic issue, but it's just interesting to hear all different points of view, and hopefully we get to hear back from you guys. All right, that ends this Friday episode of Cards to the Moon. Thank you once again to all our listeners and subscribers. And we'll be back for a brand new episode on Tuesday. See you then. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.